Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk Radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk Radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more.
Well, and that's the fun thing about shooting and becoming a great shooter is that you learn so much about guns and how they work, and you get confidence.
Oh yeah. You toward that end, I teased this. I talked about you teach people how to teach themselves or how to know, what are you doing wrong? Diagnosing. They can diagnose their own shooting.
Yeah, I ran that class for a long time, the diagnostic shooter or the diagnostic firearms instructor. And it's really, everybody's like, well, I'm not an instructor, so why should I go to that? Or why would I want to come to this? And I'm like, every day you teach yourself. You go out and you shoot. What do you think you're doing? I mean, you're just putting lead down range, and you see it on Facebook all the time. Hey, I went down and put some lead down range. Like, what does that mean?
What'd you learn?
So you know how to discharge a firearm in a safe direction, but are you a shooter? Are you really a shooter? Mm-hmm. And what I do is I teach people how to fix themselves, because I will get up their rear ends and I give them all the little details, and I talk to them about the details, because the difference between a good shooter and a great shooter is details. Mm-hmm. And they're like, man, I never thought about that, and I like the way this feels, and I never knew that. And I'll shoot and I shoot everybody's guns.
Right.
Because it proves the point.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this gun. I mean, how many times have you had somebody say, my sights are off, and you shoot the gun? No, they're not.
Yeah.
Their sights are not off.
It's very rare. Now, I have done everything with a shooter, and then finally said, can I have your gun for a minute, and shot it, and I'll pick it up and I'll look down it, and then the rear sights drifted off so far to the right.
It's practically falling out.
It's practically falling off the gun. I say, who did that to your gun? They're like, well, my instructor did it in the academy because I was shooting low left. He told me to hold higher, and he drifted my sight. And
instead of fixing the shooter.
Yeah. Because most people really don't know how. I mean, flinching and anticipation, blinking. There's times when I get in front of a shooter, I get right up in their face while they're shooting, and the gun is, just past my head, and I'm like right up against them, and I watch their arms.
Yes.
I mean, I watch their eyes. Jeez,
we're watching their eyes.
I'm next to their arms, but I watch their eyes. Yeah. And I'm watching to see them, because there are people that literally close their eyes.
Yes.
Plus, I can see eyes flutter. They look over the gun. They look down and up, down and up.
Their vision, they're going to the target and back to the sight. Target
sight, which means they're not covering the target, because if you can see the target, the gun's not in the right spot.
It's not where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You got to have that hard focus on the front sight?
I don't really think anything has to be a hard focus, and I'll tell you why. I got away from that a long time ago, because it's a totality of sights. As long as I can see the front sight through the window of the rear, things are good. I've been teaching that for a long time. Now, bullseye shooters, man, they want it crisp, and they want it clear.
That's where I got it, was from the bullseye shooting.
But I got to tell you, I can't see crap anymore, Tom. I can't see anything. I can't see anything clear. And if I put on readers, man, I could see my sights great. But the target's blurred out.
Yeah.
But you know what? I can still shoot.
You can still hit
But what I realized is that everything's blurry, and I can still shoot amazing. Everybody's like, well, I really can't see good. I can't see this. And I said, who cares? Neither can I.
But if you can press the trigger, you could probably shoot well.
Well, if you can see the front sight and the window of the rear, and you can press the trigger, you're going to get great hits.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot men at a man all day long, probably out to 25 yards.
There you go. Hold on a second. I got a call. Jim's with us in Springfield, Missouri on line 1. Hey, Jim, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. So what's on your mind, sir?
I have a question. I used to shoot competitive double-action revolvers, and the trigger pull on the Smith back in the 80s was, I preferred it to the double-action Colt Python, but I heard that the Colt Python new models have made some changes. Have they changed anything in the trigger pull?
Yes. The trigger pull feels a little different on the new Python. If you're familiar with the old Python, you know what I'm talking about. It was kind of very, very slick, but it did tend to stack at the end. The weight got a little bit heavier. They've almost eliminated or very much reduced the stacking on the end. Have you shot the new Pythons?
I thought it was as smooth as a Smith.
I didn't see that's where I was going to go. I think the new Python, and I don't know that I can't remember if I shot the Anaconda, but I shot the Python.
I did.
I think it's as good as the Smith and double action, but here's the important part. Get your take on it, Chris. It's as good as, but it's not the same. It's different. It feels a little different.
Well, you know, I love to shoot revolvers because I love to hook deep into the trigger, and I get it all the way to like almost to the second pad of my finger. I mean, when I pull that trigger, my tip of my finger's touching the backside of the grip. And I asked Jerry Mitchell the one day, I said, Jerry, this is where I put my finger when I shoot a revolver. And he goes, that's what I do.
Really?
And I was like, okay, because that's how I roll the double action.
That's about as good a recommendation as you can get. So, Jim, are you wanting to get one of the new Colts, or have you had a chance to get your hand on one?
I haven't felt one or pulled the trigger or dry fired one, but I probably will now that I've heard from you all.
Yeah.
You got to go try it yourself and just at least dry fire, don't you think?
Jim, I won't even buy a gun unless I can press the trigger. I was in a gun shop a long time ago before I was semi-famous, and I wanted to press the trigger, and the guy says I can't take the trigger locks off, and I said, well, if I can't dry fire it, I'm not going to buy it. And he goes, well, we don't dry fire here. You're not allowed to dry fire the guns. And I said, okay, well, I'm leaving.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. If I might share something on flinching, I'm an instructor myself, and we start our students, even if they're shooting semi-autos, with 22 or 38 revolvers, and then we mix up fired cases with live fires, and that'll sure show their flinching when that goes off and there's no bang.
That brings up a really interesting point, Jim, and I want everybody to know this, that I did a lot of research on pre-ignition versus post-ignition push, because I watch guys that shoot lights out. I was watching Taryn Butler at a match one day. He was running an AR-15 at about 58 yards, standing offhand, and he was knocking clays off of the string. They had clays hanging, and there was probably 10 or 8 of them, and he was boom, 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 and it went click, and he drove the muzzle of that gun down like he was going to drive it in to make a tomato steak out of it. Now, he never missed one of those clays. So I started asking everybody, and I started talking to people. How do we hit? How do we shoot so well and we still push in? Because if I come on a dead chamber, I push into the gun.
Right.
And so we started looking at the idea of a post-ignition push. And that's when I started thinking about the old saying, and you know this, Tom, because you're old. Beware the man with one gun. He probably knows how to use it.
Amen.
And so what that comes down to is that's timing. We know exactly when to exert force on that gun that it doesn't adversely affect our shot.
Because you know the gun.
Right. So even if somebody put dummies in my magazine and didn't tell me they're in there and said, yeah, shoot these 6 rounds as fast as you can.
Right.
I would dump them all into there, and if I came to that dummy, it would look like I was probably going to fall over.
It looked like a flinch, but it's actually not.
But it's not a flinch.
It's not the same thing. Very interesting. Hey, Jim, thank you for the call. I appreciate that.